everyone, my name is Haley, and today's workshop is about stress management. I'm talking to you today about stress management from the perspective of a certified health coach. And so, I've been doing this for a little over 2 years now, and you'll kind of learn a little bit about like what kind of like the scope of a health coach is as we like go throughout this presentation, just so you understand like, oh, this is like the stuff that Haley's allowed to talk about, this is the stuff that she's not allowed to talk about. But one of those most common things that my clients come and talk to me about is stress management. So basically, as a health coach, I'm in charge of trying to help you like mitigate anything that's keeping you from your health, from being your best self. And so oftentimes stress is a big barrier to that, and it can go a lot of different ways. And so I always say this for every workshop, but just make sure that anything I'm saying to you today, it's very broad just because I don't know the exact audience I'm talking to. Health coaching is very individual for a reason, and it's because I'm looking at you from a complete unique perspective. Like, you are the person in your shoes, in your life, you're the only one who understands it. And so this topics of health coaching that I talk about can't really just be like a one size fits all thing. And so with that being said, if there's anything today that you are that I say, that if it just sticks with you, there's only three things or two things or one thing that you can remember, and you don't really remember, the rest doesn't really seem to apply to you, that's okay. Just take like the one or two or three or whatever things that go with your life that fit, and run with it. Take that advice. Again, it's a very broad audience that I'm talking to, so I try to make it as broad as possible. But just knowing that health coaching should be talked about very one-on-one. So I'm going to try my best today. So notice that, and actually we're just starting on this slide with just one more thing here that I want to mention. Notice that it says stress management. So the big point that I wanted to bring up today, as and again, coming from the perspective of a health coach, is that it is not my job to teach you how to get rid of the stresses in your life. It's not my job to get rid of the stresses for you. Life is life. And as you all know, there's things that happen that are in our control. There's things that happen that are out of our control. For example, what we put into our bodies, those choices we make for our diet, like that's something we can control. There's other things that happen in life that you all can probably name. Some of them are very minor, some of them are very extreme. But those things that cause us stress that we can't control, that's what I'm kind of here to talk to you guys about today. Because when I'm working with my clients one-on-one, it's not about, okay, how do we work to eliminate this stress altogether? We have to learn how to live with stress in our life. And that's true in any age, no matter how old or young you are. Stress is a survival response. Stress is a good thing to have. Now, there's good forms of stress and there's bad forms of stress, as you all can probably sort out for yourself. But that's kind of my job here today, is to teach you not so much how to eliminate stress in your life entirely, because like we don't want that to happen. That takes away a key survival instinct in your brain of just like knowing when something is good and when something is stressful, things like that. You know how to respond to that. And so we don't want to take that away. We want to learn how to live with those stresses. And you'll learn the stresses to live with. You'll learn the ones that, okay, maybe we can eliminate these along the way, hopefully, as we go through this. But that's just the one thing I wanted to say to start, is like, don't think about it as like eliminating stress from your life, because first of all, it's not going to happen. Second of all, we like stress in a healthy amount is good. So we're going to learn how to manage it, how to walk through it from every stage of life. And so with that, this is a picture that I always bring up for every workshop, because I just like to have my audience know the perspective I'm coming from. And this is the illness and wellness continuum. So as health coaches are obtaining their certifications and they're becoming trained and educated on how to help clients best, this is the picture that comes up time and time and time again. So we're thinking about moving towards that high level wellness. Hopefully, at least that's my vision for you. I hope you share the same vision. But today we're going to focus a little bit more on that awareness and education. And we'll go from there, and you'll kind of see how those separate out. And if you've been in a workshop with me before, you already know that this is coming. I always like to do a wellness wheel check, whether it's your 500th time doing it or it's your first time doing it. It's a great thing to go back and check up on, or it's a great thing to learn to know how to do, either again with a health coach or yourself. And so for those of you who have done it before, take this time to like maybe find that old wellness wheel that you've done in a workshop of mine before, or take this time to just kind of start writing writing it out, doing what you know how to do for this wellness wheel check. You can also pause this too, or like skip ahead a few minutes if you kind of already know what this is about. For those of you that are new, um, basically I give you two options for this wellness wheel check. And obviously I don't know if you're going to do it or not, but this is just a time to kind of do a little activity here. We like to check on our overall wellness. So all of these aspects here that you see on the left and the right circles, those are aspects of wellness that I specialize in. And again, there's like certain scopes of practice that play into each one of those elements of wellness. For example, like with improving mental wellness, I'm not a psychiatrist by any means. So like anybody that needs extreme help obviously has to go to a mental health professional. But there are like certain goals and things I can help you set again for yourself if that's something that really needs to be improved in your life. So in this wheel, either you can copy the wheel as it is, or maybe just write out the words on a piece of paper. What we want to do is get a visual here. And so you can see there's an example. This person is scaling each aspect of wellness on a scale of 1 to 10. So 0 is the very center of the circle. 10 is all the way out to the word, so each spoke here. And this person, they view their social wellness here as maybe maybe that's like an 8 or a 9, which is great. You're just going to evaluate yourself here and think about on each of these aspects of wellness, where do you think on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, where do you think that aspect of wellness is? This right circle here is just more of like it's kind of just a good way to like troubleshoot people's issues. These are like the top 6 things that people come to me with, and they and this is for obvious reason. Like we notice when we're stressed, we notice when we don't drink enough water, or we don't move enough, or things like that. So sometimes I just like to throw this one in because it just gets right to the point of maybe what they want to talk about. For this stress part, think of it as like stress management. So no matter how little or how much stress you have, you are going to scale that on like how you're going to scale that 0 to 10 score on like how well you manage it. And so this person, for example, they view their stress management skills as very low. It's kind of closer to that 0, as you can see. So again, you can skip a few minutes ahead if you've kind of already figured this out, or you know what you're doing. You can pause, take some time to do this yourself. But that step 2 is what I'm going to have you guys do is connect the dots. And again, if you just wrote the numbers out on a piece of paper, writing those words out and then putting a number next to it, that's perfectly fine. You obviously don't need to do this part. For those of you that did do the circle, I'm gonna have you connect those dots. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a visual that's formed from that. And I just think that's very helpful for clients. And it's also helpful for me because I can see literally where this person feels they are excelling, where they feel like they might be dipping a little bit, or maybe need a little more help on. And it just kind of gets right to the point of the conversation. I can ask like, hey, what's this low score in occupational wellness? Like what's going on at work? And that kind of gets the conversation flowing. And so this is kind of our awareness exercise. A lot of times, like when people ask like, hey, how are you? How's it going? And whether people really mean to ask, how are you? We just, oh, fine, good. And so this is kind of a check of like, are we really fine? And again, as I said earlier, this is something you can do, maybe it's monthly, weekly, quarterly, anything like that, as a good way to kind of evaluate where your goals, see where you're excelling, see where you might need a little more work. It's a good way to get all your thoughts out on a piece of paper. And so, yeah, with that, we're going to move on to some stuff that I've kind of laid out. And again, this is all very broad suggestions on like how to deal with that stress management. Obviously in this wheel, we want to focus on the stress management part for today. That's what we're here for. Maybe save the rest for later if you want to reach out and ask me more questions. But the next few slides are just kind of how I go about the conversation with clients of managing their stress. And so again, if it's something that works for you, great. If it's something that really sticks with you, awesome. If it doesn't, if you're kind of like, yeah, no, like that doesn't really make sense for me, or I'm just not clicking with this, that's also perfectly okay. If by the whole presentation you're like, hey, this was like really irrelevant, but I still have like a lot of stress I'm dealing with, feel free to email me. That's totally cool. My inbox is always open for questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, things like that. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So what I do in those wellness wheel checks is I don't actually like lay this out to a client of just like, okay, so for now for occupational wellness, we're going to talk about who, what, when, where, why, how. And because like that's just really weird, but I obviously get to those points, those questions that we're asking by asking open-ended questions. Just like, okay, so why did you score yourself lower on this aspect of wellness? Or again, if we're talking about stress here, let's narrow it in a little bit more. But when we're talking about stress management, it's like, okay, what is the who, what, when, where, why, how behind stress? So like, who is causing it? Maybe it's just yourself. What is causing it? When does it happen? Where? Why do you think it happens, and how? And again, some of those can be a little more expansive in your answer depending on like, what your situation is. And some of them can just be short and sweet. You know exactly who's causing it, or you know exactly why it's happening. And so that is a good thing to kind of ask yourself, when you're thinking of stress, is who, what, when, where, why, how. Journaling or talking this out loud, or literally anything else to get yourself answers to these questions might be helpful. Again, some people like to journal, some people don't. I prefer talking things out loud. I have a hard time like sitting still and just writing. Or I even like to type things out if I'm really just like with myself and with my thoughts, like typing things out, it just gets it out faster for me. But knowing these answers to the question might answer or might give you the solution to managing your stress a lot quicker than you think. And so that would be my first suggestion for you. And that's kind of like the first step I start with when it comes to talking about stress with clients. And so with all of this, what we're going to really focus on here is the balance. So if someone comes to me and they are just like, I have no stress management skills whatsoever, it's hopeless, I am hopeless, things like that. I'm really, instead of just focusing on, the stress of it all, again, we can ask our who, what, when, where, why questions. But with that, like I said earlier, we need to focus on the balance, on how to live with stress. And so, because this is a long life, hopefully, and so what is best for the client, what is best for all of us to do, is thinking about how am I going to balance all 8 of these aspects of wellness throughout my whole life, even when things that happen that I can't control do happen, or things like that. So we're going to go through each of these aspects of wellness, and I'll just throw out some suggestions or questions that I might ask for someone. And again, it's related to like stress in that specific area of wellness. But again, if it's not an area that you're stressed about or it doesn't apply to you, that's perfectly okay. But we're just going to go through one by one. So with occupational wellness, something that I ask my clients, and again, I'll just kind of ask these questions out loud, but you can also answer them for yourself. Maybe even pause this video and actually take the time to write down or type out the answer to these questions as I kind of keep saying them. But yeah, first one is occupational. Normally what I would say is things along the lines of, are there networks at work that can help you with the problem? Like if something's causing a problem for you that's stressful at work, is there networks that can help? Is that your HR department? Is that your supervisor? Are there teammates or colleagues of yours that would alleviate that? If you were to talk to them or work something out with them, would they be a part of alleviating the stress? And oftentimes what I get here is that supervisors or bosses are often the source of stress. And so hopefully it's a possible thing for you to be able to collaborate and talk with your supervisor about it. Hopefully a business cares enough about the worker, because if the worker's health isn't good, if their stress is just through the roof, well, then it's not really good for the business, because like what's wanting to be accomplished for the business isn't getting done. So think about the networks at work that can help you, even if it's just someone to listen or someone to feel like that you are understood. Again, maybe that's a teammate, a coworker, things like that. But think about the networks at work that can help you overcome this stressful situation. Financial is next. So even though it seems odd, I do help. I do kind of work with people on their financial wellness. Now, again, I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, but what are your goals that you have? What's the problem? How do we fix it? And so a lot of times what I'll take people through, finances, obviously, as you know, can be very stressful. Money kind of runs your life, whether we want it to or not. And so a couple of things that I would suggest for the client after talking with them through is just like laying it all out there. So again, we're very visual people as humans. We use our eyesight like all the time. At least I do. And so seeing something is definitely going to make your brain connect more of just like, okay, here's where the problem is. or maybe it's not a problem at all. Maybe you just like worry about money. That's a thing. That people just, always worry about money for whatever reason that is. But once you lay everything out, go through the list. Think about, what did I spend money on this month? Was that a want versus a need? Prioritizing expenses. Obviously, prioritizing the things that are mostly wants. Now, a lot of times when people want to talk about finances with me, and setting goals, obviously that means, what do we want to do? We want to cut costs in some sort of way. It can look like a lot of different ways. But a lot of times people think that I'm just going to tell them like, okay, yeah, well, just like don't spend money on anything that you don't need. And that's not going to be a goal that someone accomplishes, because they probably don't want to do that. Maybe laying that list out is a good way to see, is there anything that I can give up here? Or is there anything that I can give up a little more often than I do? For example, like I really, love getting coffee every week. I love getting coffee. I don't want to give up getting coffee every week, Haley, at, my favorite Starbucks. Totally understandable. Can you somehow maybe give it up on Wednesdays? Or maybe Wednesdays is your busy day, so that's when you need it the most. Is like Tuesday or Thursday or something. So just, it doesn't always have to mean like, oh, I'm giving this up entirely. It can be like, I'm lessening the frequency of this spending habit. Or there are some things where people are totally just willing to give them up. They're like, yeah, that's not important to me. Okay, I didn't even know I was spending money on that. Versus there's just stuff that they don't want to give up, and that's okay. It's like, what's the stuff that we can work on, and what's the stuff that's a little more moldable versus like the stuff that you're just like, that's a non-negotiable, I need that, or that's something I look forward to in my day, things like that. So there's just a couple of thoughts on the finance part. So environmental, do you have a space to call your own? A lot of times, people experiencing a lot of stress, and not being able to manage it, having your own space is very, very effective, in what I found. And so, even if that space is just a little corner in your house, like let's say, you've got a house packed full of kids and a spouse and, pets, or, anything, and it just feels like nowhere can you go to just think or clear your head. And when those things are lacking, that time of just like quiet, or time to think, time to just release, that can really build up more stress in your head than maybe you even have. And so make a space to call your own, and be unapologetic about it. I would encourage you to do that, even if it's just, again, if it's just the closet in the hallway, or if it's the bathroom upstairs, or anything like that. Maybe it's a place in town that like nobody knows about, and you just go there by yourself, like it's a coffee shop or a bookstore or something, and that's just your space. You stop there every day for 10 minutes before you're heading home from work, or something like that. I don't know what that looks like for you, but like having a space to call your own is very important. So definitely maybe make that a priority if that's something where you're like, oh yeah, I guess I don't ever have space to myself. Even if it's just for 5 minutes a day, it can make a huge difference. Mental and emotional, I kind of molded these two together because they are kind of a very complex, touchy subject. And this is kind of where more the scope of practice comes in. So a lot of times when I'm talking about stress management with people, that mental and emotional wellness, as we're being more successful in figuring out how to handle our stress, that mental and emotional wellness just naturally improves. If you've tried like literally everything, you're just like, Haley, I have heard all of this before, nothing is working, nothing's going away. And even maybe there's not a whole lot of stress going on in your life, but you're still like feeling those feelings. Again, I'm not a doctor and I don't diagnose anything, but if I saw a client like that where, they're trying this, they're trying that, nothing is getting better, they still are in a really bad mental and emotional state because of their stress, I would recommend honestly just going higher up in the mental and emotional health field, and in terms of maybe seeking counseling. This is kind of an extreme one, but again, if you've tried everything, I mean, maybe don't rule it out, but hormone evaluation, and that can be done through like blood work and things like that. Obviously, you would have to talk to a doctor about that. Please talk to a doctor about that, and don't and yeah, like don't take this as like a diagnosis or anything from me whatsoever. But sometimes, like literally, there are signals in your brain that cause stress, which is a good thing, again, if it's in the right circumstance. But if that stress signaling doesn't turn off, then you might always feel that way. And so again, that's kind of like a malfunction of the brain. It's nothing, you know, too scary or grave or anything like that. But yeah, maybe it's something that you'd like to check out for yourself. Again, given that you've tried a lot of stuff and it just seems like nothing's working, maybe this is a new suggestion for you. And so that's kind of what I wanted to spend that time talking about. Social wellness. Do you have outlets? Do you have people to go to? Do you have people that you trust, et cetera, et cetera? This can be family, friends, significant others. It can be a health coach. It can be a counselor, a doctor, anybody you feel comfortable talking with about stuff. In terms of stress in your life, do you have an outlet for that? That would be the most important thing. It's like, how do you get an outlet? Who can we go to with that? And that can be something you talk over with a health coach as well. Spiritual is something that honestly, like, a lot of people come to me about, and spiritual wellness is basically just like, do you have like a reason to get out of bed in the morning? What is your like sense of belief? What is your purpose here? Like those natural, inevitable human questions that people ask. It's like, why am I here? What is the meaning of my life? We're getting really deep there, but a lot of times spiritual wellness has been a good sense of like spiritual practice, no matter what that might be. It has been proven to it has been proven to suggest that increasing those practices of, again, whatever kind it is, might help you in your stress management, might have improvements in mental and emotional health and things like that. Again, it's not a cure-all or anything like that for every situation, but if this is something you haven't considered, then maybe definitely consider implementing it. And again, spiritual is not the same as religious. Religious is like a set of beliefs and rules and often belongs to an institution. Spiritual is more freelance, I would say, to put it simply. So that's just more like, that's all about you and, whatever's going on in your head about, like, again, why are you here? What is your purpose? What are your values and ethics, morals that you live by? And it doesn't really even have to be that either. It can just be like, do you have a sense of just peace of some sort, with your life or anything like that. I put a list here. Obviously, it's not the only amount of things that you can do, but some of them are related to spiritual practices. Some of them can be more religious. So maybe just take those suggestions if you have not tried them already. And then this physical aspect here of wellness, we're going to move on and kind of expand and blow up those 4 points that I put down. So again, focusing on the balance, those 4 aspects there all have to be in check. I would suggest that these aspects of wellness are going to be like very, very important, if not the most important, to keep up. Everything affects the other. So I don't want to say that, like, oh, physical wellness is like the only thing you have to focus on making better, because I don't want your other aspects of wellness areas to suffer, because it's certainly about the balance. But if I had to choose for you, like, something to prioritize, the physical aspect of it would be best. And so with hydration, a lot of times people are like, they know they don't drink enough water. And they come to me and they're like, well, how much water should I be drinking? A lot of it is you can Google something very easily. And if you would like to follow the amount of cups or ounces that they suggest, that's perfectly okay. Otherwise, I do it a lot simpler. And again, this is just me. And if that doesn't work for you, that's okay. But I don't want to keep track of the cups and things like that. My water bottles don't label the amount of cups or ounces that I've drank. And so I just do the urine test, where you can literally see how hydrated you are by the color of your urine. So if it's a little more clear, like a light yellow, more clear, then that's a good sign of hydration. If it's darker, like a darker yellow, or hopefully it's not too dark. Obviously, if it's like brown or anything like that, like, that's definitely warranted going to the doctor. But you want it, the lighter it is, honestly, the better. And that's kind of what I aim for every day, in terms of hydration, because it keeps it simple. I don't have to keep track of it in my head, or anything. My body just has to tell me. Obviously, like any supplements or medications or things like that can possibly affect it, but there's easy ways to Google the amount of water that you should be getting, and you can go with what works best, or again, just use your own body. Sleep. So a lot of times like people struggle with the amount of sleep, obviously, especially if you're a very busy person. You know, maybe you're working, maybe you're a parent, maybe you have a lot of other responsibilities. And so sometimes the amount of sleep that we get isn't always possible, you know, based on scheduling and things like that. But can we make consistency possible? That's like something I try to think about here. So a consistent sleep schedule, is there a consistent time you're going to bed and waking up in the morning, or just one of those? Is there some sleep hygiene practices in there? So this is the one I talk to people most about when it comes to sleep is, you know, having your phone away from you for more than an hour at least before you go to bed. That blue light screen tells the part of your body, your brain, when it says, "Oh, it's time to be awake," and increases that hormones. That's melatonin. It suppresses that when you emit that blue light screen onto your eyes. It's basically like equivalent to the sun. It's got the same UV rays in there, and so when you're staring at that blue light, then what happens is, again, the melatonin is suppressed in your brain, therefore your body's not telling you, oh, it's time to go to sleep. They're saying, oh, it's time to wake up, like the sun is out and things like that. So really try to get maybe like a good sleep hygiene practice too is like, can you get a bath, or can you maybe journal, or you know, maybe you have a consistent, you know, wash your face, brush your teeth routine as well. Just anything that's consistent, anything that kind of gets you in the mood to be like, okay, we're settling down, we're winding down, we're going to bed. And that phone one is always the most surprising to people. So I would honestly start with that one if you can. Um, Exercise, at least 30 to 60 minutes of movement. And this doesn't have to be 30 to 60 minutes in a row. Some people don't have that much time in a row. And again, that's okay. Is there 6 5-minute increments throughout the day that we can break up movement? Is there, you know, 60 times you can do jumping jacks for 1 minute? You can obviously break that up as you go. And again, it doesn't always have to be, you know, getting it all done in one day. Maybe you're moving a little bit more on the day that you don't have as much to do, which is awesome. But yeah, again, trying to get that at least 30 to 60 minutes of movement every single day. Doesn't always have to be 2 hours in the gym or sprinting on the treadmill. It's really just, is your heart rate elevated? And that could be like, maybe it takes you 30 minutes to walk to work, or it takes you, you know, 5 minutes to walk up the stairs for that next meeting. There's a lot of different ways you can incorporate more movement into your day. And so definitely be thinking about how you can do that. Nutrition. There's a ton of stuff that we could go into on this, and it's definitely not something I'm going to do, but there are just a couple of things here that I put down that are kind of like some top they're kind of like some top issues that maybe you can attack if you would like, in terms of lowering that stress, or making sure that your diet is nice and balanced, and maybe again that decreases your stress because you're not as stressed knowing that your diet is not well. But a lot of Americans don't get enough protein, a lot. Also, along with that, fiber, probiotics, which is like living food. You can Google like probiotic sources. It's actually super easy and common to find. You probably have some of it in your fridge, maybe, or hopefully. And then again, can you lessen your processed food? If you can do those things, maybe start with those things, the better, and then just kind of see where it goes from there. And yeah, so with that, so what I like to kind of get going with after that is, you know, maybe we've narrowed down that work. You know, I'll go back to the work example. Maybe we've narrowed down that work is the main stressor in your life. You know, through the who, what, when, where, why, how, through talking about, you know, how to focus on the balance of it all. And we've kind of narrowed down like, okay, work is kind of the work's kind of the killer here. So a couple of common questions that I go through after that, and they're really, really basic, but sometimes it really helps when like somebody is asking you these things and then you have to talk it out loud. Some of my clients, like actually a lot of my clients, they will answer these questions with me, and some of them will be like, I didn't even know that thought was in my head. That's an absolutely ridiculous and not true thought. Yeah, and then they figure out like what's true, what's not, you know, things like that. Maybe that even lowers their stress. Okay, so what makes your stress better? You know, again, if we're stressed at work, it's like, what makes it better? What can we do in that moment, whatever it is? What makes your stress worse? Again, you know this. That's why I'm asking the client. And so you can write these down, maybe answer them for yourself, pause the video if you'd like, think about it. This is a big one. What can you control and what can you not control about the stressful situation? A lot of times we get up in our head. a lot, and we never get those thoughts out into the world. And so we kind of start to build this world in our heads of just like, I'm the victim of this stress that is being caused towards me. Once we actually talk it out, it's like, okay, are you 100% not in control? Or are you 50% in control and 50% not in control? Or are you actually, now that you're talking about it and you're thinking about it and you're going through it, are you actually 90% in control and 10% not in control? Okay, so this is good to know. We can move forward from here in like setting a goal in terms of how to tackle it on what's controllable and what's not. And then this last one, this wasn't something I learned in health coaching. I actually just like read a random book, and it really stuck out to me. I would like literally never forget it. So I mean, this isn't like this is just like a personal touch here, but the book was talking about worry versus concern. And so looking at a problem that you are stressed about that is causing you stress. Is it a worry or is it a concern? What's the difference, Haley? I'm glad you asked. So a worry is something that could happen. It might not. We don't know because it hasn't happened. It's a future situation that you are conjuring up in your head, and that is a worry. It's causing you stress. This hypothetical possible might not even happen situation. Now, a concern. And then sorry, with a worry, the last thing I'll say with that is with a worry, the biggest characteristic of it is that there is no solution to fix it, to fix that worry, because it hasn't happened, or it might not happen, or maybe it hasn't happened yet. There's no situation or solution to fix it. Now, with a concern is an actual real life problem that is out in front of your face. The only thing with that, and the biggest difference between the concern versus the worry, is a concern has a solution. So I always like to use the example of like, you're planning a birthday party, and the birthday party is going to happen on Saturday. You know, today's Friday when I'm recording this. It's going to happen tomorrow. Planning it for your friend, and you're really, really, really worried about like, is everything going to go right? Is everybody going to show up? Is she going to like the food? Is he, like things like that. It's all these things that don't have a solution to them. You're just like sitting there in your thoughts versus, okay, now it's Saturday and the party is now, and your friend doesn't like the food. People are having a hard time finding the place where the party's at. And oh my gosh, like the cake just spilled everywhere on the guest of honor. Those three big issues that I just said there, some of them might be bigger than others, but all of those have a solution to it. It's your friend doesn't like the food. Okay, let's order something else. Some of your guests are having a hard time finding the place. All right, let's send them the address, or let's like go outside and look for them and kind of guide them where they're going. The cake fell on the guest of honor. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, here's a change of clothes, or we're going to go buy a change of clothes, or here's a paper towel. There's something that you can do. And now it's a concern because it's a problem in front of you. It's a real life problem. So hopefully that, in terms of like what's causing you stress, I would encourage you to ask yourself, is it a worry or is it a concern? And if it's a concern, great. That means there's a solution, and that's awesome. We can go about fixing it. If it's a worry, that's just going to have to be a practice of, how do I drop these worries? It's not a thing. How do I get rid of it? And yeah. So what to do from there? Think about one thing at a time here. Maybe I said a bunch of stuff to you today and you're just like, I want to do it all. That all makes sense. I'm going to tackle it all. Heck yeah. That's great. I'm glad a lot of stuff was relevant to you. But I would encourage you to do one thing at a time. A lot of times people, as humans, try to pick up 12 new habits at once when they weren't even doing one habit to begin with that was good for their health. They try to pick up 12 new ones, and they're walking along and they're walking along, and they're not used to walking with that many habits, and they're going to stumble or something's going to happen to them, and then they drop everything. And now they're spending all this time picking up the habits again, and okay, we're off. We're walking again. And again, you're not used to it. Whereas if you were to just pick up one habit at a time, and once you get used to that one habit, all right, let's pick up another one. And I've been doing this one for a while too. All right, I'm ready for a new one. Things like that. I would encourage you, please, 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 to do one thing at a time. Pick one thing that stuck out to you today that you really want to go for, and go for it. And just worry about that one thing for like 3 months at least. If you can try to get that 3 to 6 month window, depending on what it is. Sometimes it's a smaller goal, so it doesn't really need that much time, but it's a bigger life-changing goal. really try to aim for that 3 to 6 month time window that you have nailed this, you've established this is a habit, this is something a part of you now, and then pick up another thing. Have check-in points and check-in people. So check-in points, again, if you set a goal today after this workshop, you're like, all right, I'm going to do this. Set a reminder a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, 3 months later. How are things going? Something that gets you to ask, because pretty soon, we're at the end of March now. It's the end of Q1. And this is kind of around the time where people are like, I remember when I said in January I was going to do this. And then I kind of forgot about it because I wasn't checking in with myself. Nobody was checking in with me. So do you have people that can keep you accountable? If not, are there ways that you can keep yourself accountable? Set a day and time that you check in with how your goals are going, or can like somebody, a friend, a spouse, a health coach do this? And then again, tracking progress. Again, we're very visual people. We learn best when it comes to seeing something on paper as results. A lot of times when it comes to changing our health for the better, we don't automatically get that right away, I can see the proof, feeling. And so is there some way that you can show yourself the proof? Maybe it's a mood board. Like literally, oh my gosh, all these days I meditated and I for 10 minutes and I rated my mood so much higher than the days that I didn't meditate. I was awful those days. I felt awful. I didn't feel like, doing anything. And so it's like you can see those results of just like, because I've been doing this, this is the direct result of it. And that's awesome. And I love that. And that's what keeps you going, is seeing those results. So even if there's something that you can't see right away yourself, maybe there's something that you can put outside of you that gets you to see what's going on in the progress you're making. And so just to recap, we learned about the who, what, when, where, why, how, and how you can talk that out loud to yourself. We learned about finding the balance in all of the aspects of wellness. And we also talked about picking one thing and starting with that, what you can control versus not control, and a worry versus a concern. I really love that worry versus a concern. I hope you love it as much as I do. And so with that, if you would like to sign up for a consult, I highly encourage you to. It's something you can do virtual with me. It's also, like I said, my email is free for you to contact. I think it's on the next slide. But if any of these 1 to 3 things apply to you, sign up for a consult. Worst case scenario, it's 30 minutes of your life and you absolutely did not learn one thing, which I highly doubt will happen. Everybody always really loves the consults, not to brag. But that is something I would encourage you to do. And if you would like to sign up for know more about health coaching or sign up for any of it, again, after you get that free consult, definitely this is the information about health coaching should you want to do it further. You can talk to your general manager about the pricing and the scheduling, or again, my email is right there. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I always take questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, suggestions, compliments. And so with that, I hope you learned a lot today. I thank you for your time and your attention. It is very appreciated. And I wish you the best of luck. I hope this was helpful in some sort of way in helping you get a little bit better, reaching that higher level wellness.